A man abandoned his pregnant wife at the hospital and disappeared. Mary was 9 months pregnant when the pain struck her body like sudden fire. It was a harsh, blinding morning, the kind that made patience thin and tempers short. She gripped her stomach as her husband, James, rushed her into a yellow taxi, holding the only small bag they owned. It carried baby clothes, hospital papers, and fragile hope. They were not wealthy. They were not powerful. They were just two working-class people surviving quietly, like millions of couples around the world. At the hospital entrance, Mary lowered herself onto a wooden bench while a nurse demanded her husband's details. James scribbled his name and phone number, his hand shaking slightly. He looked at Mary's face, pale, tired, trusting. "Wait here," he said softly. "I'll be back in a few minutes." That was the last sentence he spoke that day. 1 hour passed. The pain worsened. James didn't return. 2 hours passed. His phone was switched off. Mary's fear grew heavy, sinking into her chest. Other patients arrived with families. Laughter echoed down the corridor. Support surrounded everyone, except her. Nurses walked past her again and again, stopping each time with the same question. "Where is your husband?" Mary had no answer. Doctors warned her she needed urgent admission. But before help came, bills arrived. Forms piled up. Questions followed. Shame crept in quietly, wrapping around her dignity. She wondered how she trusted a man who could vanish at the edge of responsibility. Anger burned. Betrayal cut deep. Humiliation crushed her spirit. Her hands trembled as she clutched her stomach harder, breathing through waves of pain. The wooden bench felt cold beneath her. Time slowed. Fear thickened. Mary sat alone, invisible among the noise of the hospital. She looked down at her belly and whispered nothing. Around her, nurses continued their rounds, voices firm, faces impatient, repeating the same words that now echoed in her mind. "Where is your husband?" Mary sat alone on the wooden bench, clutching her stomach, while nurses asked the same question again and again. "Where is your husband?" That statement broke Mary's heart. Mary remained on the wooden bench where her husband had left her. The pain had changed. It no longer came gently. It arrived suddenly, tightening her body and forcing her to bend forward, gripping her stomach as she struggled to breathe. Nurses passed her again and again. Each time the same question followed. "Where is your husband?" She remembered how he said he would be back in minutes. Now even the words felt foolish. Her phone lay silent in her trembling hand. No calls, no messages. Around her, the hospital continued as if she wasn't there. Families arrived together. Husbands stood beside their wives, signing forms, making decisions, offering comfort. Mary watched them quietly, like someone separated from the world. A nurse stopped in front of her and spoke loudly. "You cannot be admitted without payment. Labor ward is not a waiting area." People turned to look. Mary felt her face burn. A woman nearby shifted her seat away. Another patient stared, then quickly looked down. The bench beneath her felt colder than before. Another contraction struck. Mary gasped, trying to hold it in. A nurse glanced at her and shook her head. "She's disturbing the place." The words cut deep. Bills were placed beside her. Forms followed. Numbers she didn't understand. Amounts she couldn't afford. No one explained anything. They spoke over her, around her, about her, never to her. She lowered her head, refusing to beg. That was when someone noticed. A man stood nearby, holding a small bag. He had come to visit an injured colleague. His clothes were worn, his shoes dusty. But something about the way Mary sat, folded inward, ignored, made him stop. He walked closer and asked gently, "Madam, are you all right?" Mary tried to answer, but the pain broke her voice. She explained everything. The taxi ride, the bench, the promise, the waiting, the silence. The man listened. Then he turned toward the nurse's desk. "She is in labor," he said calmly. "Why is she still here?" There was hesitation, then movement. As nurses helped Mary to her feet, one asked again, "Where is the husband?" The man replied quietly, "She is not alone." He paid what little he had and stepped back as they wheeled her down the corridor. Inside that corridor, a nurse leaned close and said urgently, "Your labor has begun." The pain became something else entirely. Mary no longer counted minutes. She counted breaths. Her body shook as nurses rushed her down the corridor, lights flashing above her, voices overlapping, wheels screeching against the floor. Inside the delivery room, everything felt loud and distant at the same time. Again, a nurse asked the familiar question, "Where is the husband?" No answer came. There was no hand to hold and no voice to calm her. Only commands, only urgency. Push, breathe, again. Mary pushed until her strength drained from her bones. Sweat blurred her vision, fear mixed with determination. She thought of the wooden bench, the switched-off phone, and the promise that never returned. Then a cry pierced the room, sharp, sudden, alive. A nurse announced that it was a baby boy. Relief rushed through Mary's chest, but it didn't last. Another nurse stopped and said there was another one. Confusion spread through the room. Moments later, a second cry filled the air. Before anyone could explain, a third cry followed, smaller, but just as strong. The room froze. Someone whispered that it was triplets, 2 boys, 1 girl. Their cries overlapped, filling the room with shock and disbelief. Nurses stared at one another. A doctor stepped closer, stunned. Mary burst into tears, not from joy alone, but from fear. 3 babies, no husband, no savings, no plan. The babies were placed beside her one by one. They were small, fragile, and perfect. Outside the delivery room, the man who had helped her paced the hallway, whispering prayers under his breath. When a nurse finally told him the news, he stood still and repeated the word triplets under his breath. Inside the ward, the celebration faded quickly. Bills arrived almost immediately. Thicker papers, bigger numbers. Before Mary could rest, a nurse spoke carefully and told her that all payments would need to be cleared before discharge. Mary stared at the ceiling as 3 newborns slept beside her, and the future stood before her, heavy and uncertain. Early the next morning, footsteps echoed down the ward. Several people entered, dressed formally, and stopped at her bed. Everyone looked serious. They didn't come to congratulate her. They came to decide what would happen to her babies. The moment they reached Mary's bed, the room changed. Nurses stopped talking, hands folded, eyes lowered. Even the machines sounded louder. Mary felt it before she understood it. Her 3 babies slept beside her, small, fragile, unaware that strangers now stood between them and the future. Her body ached, her chest tightened. Something bad was coming. One of the visitors spoke. "Madam," the word was heavy. "We need to ask you a few questions." Mary nodded. Her throat was dry. They asked about the delivery, the babies who brought her in. Each question pressed harder. Then it came. "Where is the husband?" The room froze. Mary's lips parted. No sound. Then she spoke. "He left before I gave birth." Silence fell. A nurse turned away. Another shifted. Pens moved. Outside the ward, the man who helped her stood against the wall. His fists tightened. He listened. One wrong move could destroy everything. Inside, a thick file opened. "Triplets require special care," one visitor said. "Monitoring, resources, stability." Mary's heart raced. Bills, forms, the bench where she waited alone. "Where is your husband?" "I will do anything," she said. "Please, I just want my children safe." Her hands shook. One visitor studied her, then closed the file. "That is why we are here." Mary looked up. "We were alerted about a woman left alone in labor," another said. "No family, no support, no payment plan." "She arrived very late," the nurse said. "Yes," the man replied. "We know." Silence returned, heavier. Then his voice changed. "We are not here to punish you. We are here to make sure these children leave this hospital alive." Mary stopped breathing, protected. Outside, the man in worn shoes lifted his head. Inside, nurses moved faster, gentler, careful. Mary stared at her children. The future still terrified her, but it no longer felt cruel. Somewhere far away, the man who walked out remained missing. His absence was about to change everything. The story continues in part 2.